This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, and today I'm going to talk no war, but the class war. The truth is the first casualty of war, and the first losers are us, the lower classes, the working class, the middle class. Most of us that depend on a wage to survive are immediately losers. It doesn't mean that some among us will not become more prosperous, but of course that will be the minority. In proxy wars, as is the case of the war between Russia and Ukraine, of course the proxy is always the loser, which means that the Ukrainian people, are the losers, are the main losers in this war. Russia seems to be doing well economically, much better than the Western countries, but it doesn't mean that some parts of the population are not suffering with the war because of inflation or what. I'm not sure about if what I'm saying is true or not, but it can be that the ones that always start suffering with, for example, with inflation and scarcity, which means inflation, and austerity, are of course the lower classes, because that's the one that have less resources, and the money they can buy less. And that's the part of that's what's interesting when people say that they are against the growth, which many people use this term in order is a provocative term. It's a provocation against growth, and it's more than anything else. But for the people, especially in the situations of wars, there is the growth. There is the growth for whom? For those in the bottom of the social pyramid. And they are not, of course, it depends on the countries, but they are never the minority. They are always the majority of people. But we tend to ignore it. So any war, it's always a class war. It might be a war between between oligarchs and plutocrats of a country or an empire that wants to control, that needs to go into war with another country or empire in order to prevail as the dominant power. This is the case of the American empire. I don't care if people, it doesn't matter if we call them neocons, oligarchs, plutocrats, deep state, permanent bureaucracy, deep politics. It doesn't matter. It's always class war. It's always class war, even when it's a war between people of factions or groups of different countries or whatever, or different interests among the same class. Because war is competition, is power competition for domination. That's what war is. And again, it doesn't matter if war is provoked or unprovoked. So war is always about wealth, resources, and territory control. That's why the war. I mean, there can be, of course, there can be always examples of wars that are really wars for independence. But even the wars against colonialism, colonialist powers, wars for liberation, that those, of course, there are for self-determination, for sovereignty. This is usually the wars that are against power. But even those wars sometimes are, since the beginning, instrumentalized by people that they will be used to install in power certain groups that will become influential and dominant in society. That's already war. That's already part of the no war but class war. Because every structure that we follow in our societies, in the imperialist civilization paradigm that we live since millennia, it's always we assume that we cannot operate but under hierarchical systems, from superior to inferior, above and below, which means that we assume as natural and normal that there are superior people and inferior people, that are superior classes and inferior classes, based on the premise that there is merit. It's always about merit. They deserve what they get. They deserve their position in society. They deserve the role they play, and their wealth and private property, if there is the case, which is everywhere. They deserve it not because of a class war, but because of their merit. Not because the system is rigged, not because the system is set to favor, already favor groups, some groups in society, but only because of merit. So merit is weaponized. Merit is weaponized. That is no question. I repeat it again and again because we really need to understand it. That's not the case that we do not have merit, that merit is not important. As anything, it's important to understand and to reward merit to a certain extent. But merit, like anything else, is not an absolute value. You know? It is always relational. We always need to understand that merit is relational. It is related to something. It's a past. That is why, it is important that we just don't see it as an absolute term. That is a meritocratic paradigm that we follow, and the people that operate under certain principles, they will be labeled as merit. They will have the merit, and that merit consequently leads to the reward of wealth and property, private property, and the titles, and social recognition, and whatever comes with it. And we just assume this as normal, and we do not see that this is part of, this is a systemic one part of a system that is based on the idea that inequality, of the fairness of inequality, of the assumption that inequality is fair. Because in a competitive environment, the ones that have more competitive edge, it's normal that they become successful, and the other ones just lose. This is a game. We assume life as a game, not as something important with dignity, innate in dignity, that needs to be taken into account, because all lives matter. My life doesn't matter more than any other person or living being. And if I want to have my whims cannot become more important than the desires and wishes and wants of other people. My whims, I'm sorry, I think I said it wrong. My whims, wishes and wants can never be more important or relevant than other people's needs to be satisfied. And I have no doubt that I always can come up with a justification or a way to justify that it's my whims, the satisfaction of my whims are more important than because they are losers, because they don't work, because they are lazy, because they are stupid, because they are black, because they are, I mean, you know, it's always the possibility that we can find a way to justify ways of life that are inherently unjust, unfair, and unjust, and based in lies, based in false assumptions. Because not everything that seems that at first sight or first glimpse looks fair and meritocratic, it is meritocratic. Because unless we take into account the consequences, we should never assume, we should never label something that has merit if the consequences are bad. But if we already assume that the consequences are part of the game, and that's how the system works, and there's nothing we can do to change it, we are already justifying all the wrongdoings that exist in this world. The reason why we need to read interpret war as no war but class war, it's because even wars are not as anything else. We cannot read it in a linear way. That we always need to have analysis, to have holistic analysis, which means that we need to understand things as a network, a systemic network. It doesn't. Things are not as they seem. Almost never. So that's why we most of the time cannot take as true by anything by its face value. We need, because first of all, none of our, even amongst even those who really care about intellectual honesty and try hard to be to stay on the path of truth and justice. I mean, we are flawed and incomplete and mistaken and misguided and many things. I mean, this is not. I mean, this should be kind of a basic law of the understanding of human condition. That's why it doesn't make any sense to look for guidance in a single person, a savior, a leader, a hero, a guru, a master, whoever it is. It doesn't make any sense to do it, because we are social beings and we depend on each other to have to build a society, to build a civilization that makes sense, that is ecological, an holistic ecological civilization. We cannot depend on anybody. We cannot wait to be saved by some powerful, godlike figure that we wait, and when it comes, we will. When we believe, or we are led to believe that someone is that person or that entity, and then we are led to disaster usually, because we do not understand human nature, the inherent social dependency of human nature, a cooperative, and the need, the reciprocity, that it is important to understand, to have a system that functions for our benefit, for our collective benefit, not to save anybody. This is not about saving anything. I always thought like that. That people saving, nature doesn't need to be saved. Nature needs to be respected. I mean, we don't need to be stewards. We just need to have an economic system and a social system and a civilization with values and rules and limits, that we don't cross the boundaries. And doesn't matter if that's the point that we cannot have the feel entitled to, because when you have this system, this hierarchical system that naturalizes for some people to be entitled to, because somehow their achievements are authorizes them to have behaviors, or in this case consumption behaviors, or luxuries, or whatever, that the ordinary people cannot have. It should not have. That's the main point. We are not here to be collectors. Many people, it doesn't matter. We are here to be contemplative people, to admire life, to connect with life, to contemplate, and to live and let live. Not to accumulate stuff, then that we need to protect it. And that's why we have wars. Wars to protect wealth. And to plunder other people's wealth and resources. And it has been like that since we have been following psychopathic, megalomaniac people, that we allowed them to control societies. That's how it works. Any small community, or medium size, or bigger size, or a nation, country, that allows themselves to be manipulated by people or groups of people that have. I have to repeat this again and again. I'm sorry, because this is so important. Over time they will create a legal system to authorize them to control us through whatever means, and they will create a moral code to glorify them. And in this, and Frederick Bastiat was, I was struck by this quote, because to me it just is so useful to understand imperialist civilization. And it doesn't mean that the reason why the man wrote it. It is for me a tool, an intellectual tool to understand. One of the intellectual tools to understand imperialist civilization. And imperialist civilization is always a power competition. It's always about expansion, conquer, to control other people's territories, resources, and exploit people, enslave people, and kill, mass killing. And what do we do? What do we see? There is a hierarchy where the lower classes of one of the imperialist side are used. Okay, they are used to fight the wars for the upper classes of the empire, for the accumulation of wealth and power and more control of that class, plutocratic class, against the people of other nations. This paradigm, there are patterns that have been repeating over and over again, and we always fall for propaganda about patriotic values and our values, the good values against the bad values, and the good people against the bad people, and all that, and the civilized people against the savages, or at least, if not against them, to civilize them, the mission to civilize them. And these fallacies, these fallacious and dogmatic and demagogic speeches and narratives people seem to not still seem to be taken by them, to be colonized by them. This is about colonizing our minds. It's nothing about freedom and democracy, and much less about truth and justice. This is just about mind control for profit. That's the point. It's mind control for profit. That someone, for a few, a minority, to accumulate the wealth and control the private property in their hands, and for the rest of us to struggle and to fight their fights. Because this is, the case of that we have now, specifically the war in Ukraine, at first glance it might seem that this is an imperialistic war, but it's Russia playing the role of the imperialistic nation that is conquering a smaller nation, and it might not end there. So we can read it this way. I don't think that's the case. It doesn't mean that there is no people in Russia that would not like to conquer you. I don't know. Maybe I believe that there is people, Russians, that will be happy to control all Europe. I don't want to deny it, because it's a possibility. But again, in this case, this war could be prevented by the Western imperial forces and interests, if there was they wanted to have to share, to not be to control the whole world. As I said yesterday, the idea globalization was about what we call globalization was a Western project to control the whole world, to not allow any other nation to rise to the point of becoming, to be able to challenge the unipolar world order that emerged out after the demise of the Soviet Union. And that's why the expansion of NATO was part of that project. And that's why the European Union has been transformed into part of that project too. This is together. This is a part of an intention of controlling the world by a single power, an hegemon, and that was not. This is a reality that most of us do not want to see or accept or understand, because we think about, we believe in that are the conspiracy theories about global government and all of that I also talked about, but it was not about that. It was about global governance with Washington dictating the rules. That was exactly what was being done. Not a global government, as many people believe, where everybody was involved. No, everybody was involved. Yes, everybody was supposed to be part of that governance, but as junior partners and vassal states, not as sovereign states with full sovereignty. Even that was true for China, and that was true for Russia as well. And we need to understand it like that, because there are facts to prove it. That's not because they are all in bed together, as many people believe. That's why many conspiracies are wrong, because they are based in, a conspiracy. We have conspiracy hypotheses, and not every hypothesis is right. So if you base your conspiracy theory in fake, fabricated, or unverified hypothesis or unverifiable hypothesis, that is for sure that you come to the conclusions that you might even want because you might want to have that conspiracy theory to meet your vision of the world, a vision of those who write the conspiracy theories or talk about them. They might they might want to sell a story, to sell a narrative. And we always need to be aware of that, because narratives are not about telling the truth, or it's about telling a story. And that story might be more tending to facts or to fiction. That's how it works. So there is, and so this is the story of the Ukrainian war. The Ukrainian war was provoked because there was an intention by the unipolar world controlled by Pax Americana, that wanted to even break Russia apart. You just look what they are trying to do with Azerbaijan right now. They are trying to use Azerbaijan as another proxy to destabilize Russia and Iran. They are always working. The CIA, the Mossad, the M16. They work together, and they have the means. They are very powerful, and they are part of the permanent bureaucracy that uses all tools available of the toolbox to promote the interests of the empire, because we were supposed to be governed have a unique empire, and that was the American empire, and that's why we cannot understand the war in Ukraine. It is a different class war, but it's still a class war, because it's the class, is the imperialist. I mean, I don't care if you think that Russia is also imperialist. You can, it's fair enough if you want to have that position. It's fair enough, okay? It's not the point. The point is there was, for decades, much before the demise of the Soviet Union, that the Americans wanted. They crafted the papers. No, they had the idea of controlling the world. You know, the concept of full spectrum dominance. And the Wolfowitz doctrine, Paul Wolfowitz doctrine, and many other, that idea of the world being controlled by in perpetuity by the Western powers, and with the headquarters in Washington D.C. and the axis between Washington D.C. and Wall Street. It was this is not a conspiracy theory. This is facts. This was not about the world government. This is what about world governance. And why? As I said yesterday, it was about a shared. You know, that you need allies. That's why you need NATO. The NATO countries are junior partners in that alliance. Because the American, this idea of global governance needs alliances, needs accomplices. And that is for sure. They have accomplices in many countries. Because there are people in any country that they are willing to sell their sovereignty for their private wealth. That's their version. They want you to be patriot, to defend, to have the patriotism to die for your nation and country, for your culture and civilization. But themselves, they don't care if they sell it not for a plate of lentils. That doesn't work. You might fall for that if you are very hungry, if you are famished. They want a plate of, not a plate, a big bag of gold. That's what they want, and they don't mind to sell their countries, to give in a silver plate the resources of their countries to the imperialists, and the control of the economy and the sovereignty, the political sovereignty and the financial sovereignty and the monetary sovereignty in the hands of the imperial in the imperialist entity, or conglomerate, if you prefer to see the American empire as a conglomerate, which can work like that. So it is important that we understand that this war is a clash between. It is interesting to see, because Actually, in to a certain extent, Russia is fighting for their. They invaded a country. This is the paradox, and this is why we need to do our due diligence, and we need to do our research in order to understand that Russia, the Russia's sovereignty and integrity was being put into jeopardy by the advancement of NATO. And you can say, but it's okay, NATO is in Sweden now, and Finland, and Norway, and NATO is almost in every European country. And why Ukraine was a problem? It was a red line, because Moscow is just really short, 10 minutes. The missiles can reach Moscow in 10 minutes with with nuclear weapons. So it is hard. It is, for many people, it is hard to understand that Russia. That was a red line for Russia. What they have been weaponizing, they have been militarizing Ukraine for maybe 10, 20 years. And then there was the Maidan coup in 2014, because they wanted. This was a long-term project to weaken Russia. And that's why, in spite Russia invaded, you can call it a special military operation, or you can call it just an invasion, a raw invasion, or whatever you think it's more more appropriate. The reason is that in this case, Russia. Russia invaded another country, another sovereign country. That is also the problems with Donbass and I don't remember the name of the other region right now. So the Russians tried hard to avoid it. Actually, they did try to avoid it. But the Western powers didn't want to avoid it. The Western powers were really willing to take it as far as possible, to provoke. That's exactly the right word. It was the Western powers that wanted to provoke this war, using Ukraine as a useful idiot, as cannon fodder. So it is the imperialist class of the Western powers, the United States, mainly the United States, but also the many oligarchs and plutocrats in the other Western allies that wanted. They had the vision to take over, to have the opportunity to take over the resources and the land, that means that was part. Russia could not be an independent country. Russia should be part of the global governance. Should be ruled by the rules. Should be accept the rules of the global governance that, of course, were dictated, which means that the Russian economy should not become independent, and that's why they ate the BRICS, because the BRICS is the first project that really that started to become a threat to the unipolar. That's the BRICS and the Belt and Road Initiative, and of course the rise of China, as China is now the first economy of the world, not the United States. Okay, the United States is a financialized economy. Most of the wealth comes from an economy that uses financial instruments and financial engineering to produce wealth, fake wealth. That's why we cannot. That's why the economy, the United States economy, and the British economy, and then it is starting with many other economies that they are not. I mean, an economy that a financialized economy is a fake economy. Why? Because you are giving the illusion that you are creating wealth. You are creating wealth. You are not creating any wealth. You are creating wealth by the rich and for the rich through rentier, through a parasitic system of rentierism, not through the production and the allocation of financial resources to the real economy and society. This is just a game. The financialized economy is basically an economy that is where only 10% of the population is involved. The rest, it doesn't mean that not anybody can own shares or other financial products or bonds, but the bulk of the system of the financialized economy is owned and controlled by, not by the 10%, but 10% they profit out of it. They are controlled by 1% of the population of a country like the United States. This is not the reason why the concentration of wealth on a few ends is exactly how a financialized economy works. There are no good jobs, paying jobs created. There are most people live from service jobs, low-paid service jobs. They are not really producing goods or doing anything. Of course, the wealthy are doing well. So this war, this war was a war to keep the unipolar order, not because of democracy, of freedom, or the Western values, or anything else that sometimes we think it's why we go to wars. No, of course not. That was not the reason. The reason is this class of people, the ones that the It's not only the profiteers of war, okay? I'm not the ones that only direct profit out of war, like the MIC, the military industrial complex. They are the ones that directly benefit with war. But there are the other ones, which especially they are in the financial sector and banking sector. They are part of the bankster and financial crime association, because this is not what these people do by using financial instruments and especially leverage debt, using debt as leverage. They are not, these are crimes against the economy, against the real economy, and crimes against the ordinary people. Again, this is a class war. This is a class war, and these people need to maintain the international order as it is, because it's the only way that their wealth can keep growing, because they are the ones that control the international institutions, the international banking and financial system. They are the profiteers of this system. So that's why I'm saying that it goes beyond the MIC, the military industrial complex, because this is an imperial class war, which is the imperialist class that wanted to control the whole world, to dictate the governance, the global governance, that wanted to control it in perpetuity, that are waging, that have been preparing, that have been militarizing and Nazifying and using the Nazis, weaponizing the Nazis in Ukraine to prepare them for this war. Okay, and this is a war for, this is a part of a war for global, to keep the global hegemonic power, to try to save it. At this moment, it's trying to save it, and that's why they are desperate, because the history is now against them. And that's why we are crazy the Europeans are crazy the people that are now in charge of most countries, European countries, and the European Commission and the European Union, they are in the wrong side of history. They are trying, they are part of the problem, they are not part of the solution, because again they are engaged in a class war against us. They do not care about our well-being. They are part of the imperialist clique that wants to keep the international order, the rules-based international order, for the benefit of the 1%, of the 0.1% of the Western oligarchs and plutocrats. That has been their project for a long-term project. This was not yesterday. It was not something that came about with the Ukrainian war, of course, and then we just we need to understand it, and we need to organize and unite to do something against it, because it's for our own sake, for the sake of the generations to come. This is we are going to. If nothing will be done to stop these people, and again, I'm convinced that Europe could take the lead to change the course of history. You know, that's the point. That's the main point, because the Europeans could finally could just say enough is enough to the Americans, not Trump. Trump wants. I mean, don't you understand what Trump is doing? Trump is trying to do only one thing. Trump is trying to make to give the weapons that he can, not maybe what Ukraine needs, but as many weapons as the United States can, but make them be paid by the Europeans. It's clever, isn't it? It's just to make the Europeans pay the bill. That's what it is about. And our leaders, you can see how happy Kaja Kallas and Ursula von der Leyen are. They are very happy with this. They speak in our name, okay? We Europeans, we are willing to do what it takes to help Ukraine. Yes. In the name of what? In the name of the imperialist order, not in the name of the European sovereignty or of the European unity, of the European well-being. They are putting our future in jeopardy by telling us that we need to prepare for war with Russia. So they are waging a class war against us in the name of a global order that is not anymore viable. Globalization, as many say, is dead, which means that the globalization as the project of a unipolar order where the global governance would be was being already dictated by the United States of America, and that any nation would rise to become a challenge to this order, is over. And there is only one thing. They might take us into the Third World War if we are not already there, to try to save that order doesn't exist anymore. As I said yesterday, we still have global economy, a different type of globalization with a change of trade, but the globalization, the Western designed globalization is over. It's not dead yet, but it's over. It means that we cannot. There is nothing we can do. Unless we could be able to destroy Russia and China and Iran and probably other countries, to uh, to as they used to say, to bring them, to just make them, destroy them. That's no other word to say it, to destroy them. But I think that's not, that the possibility of that becoming true, even I know they are very powerful, as they can do a lot of damage by using proxies, like I said, like Azerbaijan, Georgia, there is always countries that can be weaponized. There will always be puppets willing to do the beating for the American empire, at the expenses of their own peoples, usually. But I think it's very difficult. This time is very difficult to reverse the trend, because I think that this time history is not in our side. The game is over. Unless or we, but it's in. The people that are in charge, they and the people behind them, the so-called deep state and the permanent bureaucracy and all the wealthy people, that they don't want to lose control of what was built over time, this global empire, financial, economic. This is a different empire, because it was not only about conquering, it was controlling territories without conquering them in the literal sense. It was by using alliances and vassals, and by controlling the flow, the blood of the economy. That was one of the most important. Of course, the most important is the military power. That's why a network of bases, a global network of bases, and intelligence, and satellites, and internet, and everything that was required for a global empire. But the control of the blood of the economy, of finance, of money, and that's why there is still many countries that they are not able to do anything, because they are kept. The blood of their economies can be. They can shut the faucet, the tap, at any time. They can just make them, like they said, make the economy scream. That was Nixon who said it. I think it was Nixon that said this phrase. It was against whom? I don't remember, but that's what I mean. Make the economy scream. And when you control the finance, international finance, the main institutions, main banking institutions, and the all privately and institutionally and publicly, so therefore it's very difficult to have any agency as a sovereign country, and that was done intentionally. That's why we need to understand it, and that's why we have this war. This war is the war that is putting an end to an era. It's not going to come back unless, as I said, I mean, it's very difficult. We can never say that I cannot say it with 100% of it's not an absolute, because but it is very difficult that the American global order that has the idea of govern the world to dictate the governance of the world in perpetuity is over. I think it's and we need to understand it and think, and in the case of Europeans, we should be able to change our political our political choices, because that we need it to our survival. That's how it works. That's how we should see it, perceive it. Okay, it's enough for today. Thank you for listening. I'll be back soon.